Part 64. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 632. The navy of the Constitutional Army was very fast, and it only took half a day to reach the outskirts of the Martini Islands. Seeing the Constitutional Army ship slowing down, Rudolph said, "Hurry up, why are you slowing down?" "Mr. Furness, we are worried about the Wizarding Society's ships, so we should be careful." "Oh, this is my problem. I have been thinking about how to operate level 8 alchemy bullets. I forgot to tell you that your worries are unnecessary. The wizards have no sea ships now, not even a single one. Their sea ships have all been destroyed by me." Scuttled. After hearing what the Furnace said, Lieutenant General Goulet was shocked and then surprised. The ships of the Ancient Sea Wizards Association are very powerful, otherwise they would not become a very powerful force on the Sarah Ancient Sea. Now that all the ships of the Wizarding Association have sunk, the Furnace is indeed the Furnace. He is worthy of being the largest pirate on the Ancient Sea of Sarah, and he still looks like the top pirate when he strikes. Then just move forward. The Constitutional Army Navy continued to accelerate, heading towards the Martini Islands that were already in sight in the distance. There is one large island and 4 small islands in the Martini Islands. What Lieutenant General Goulet saw in the telescope gave him a feeling that today's battle should be over soon. At this time, on the large island, the ground reflected the sunlight abnormally, and the watery light felt as if the entire island had just been submerged. The Furnace had told Goulet beforehand, but seeing this scene with his own eyes still surprised Goulet. The Wizards Association is such a powerful force, but they have to use self-destructive methods like drowning themselves to deal with the Furnace. It seems that they are also under great pressure when facing the Furnace. Why use also? Because Goulet felt that even if they were not enemies of the melting pot, they would still feel a lot of pressure cooperating with the melting pot. They were afraid that the melting pot would tear up the agreement and take action against them. There are no buildings on the island, all decent buildings have been destroyed, and the port does not look like a port. There are only more than a dozen sunken ships in the port. There are many believers on the island who gather together in groups of 3 or 5 to keep warm, back to back. There was mud everywhere and there was no place to stay. Judging from the frequency of movements of the believers, these believers have been hungry for at least 3 meals. When the Ancient Sea Wizards flooded themselves, they had no time and energy to take out food, leaving the people on the island hungry. Goulet also saw a small group of apostles on the shore through the telescope, led by 2 level 7 apostles, but the number of men behind them was much smaller than expected. When level 7 apostles go out, they are always surrounded by people, especially people with the status of the president of the Wizarding Society and the High Priest. There are so few subordinates behind them, which proves that what the Furnace said is true, and he really took over the island. All the level 6 and level 5 apostles were cleared. Judging from the number of people, the Furnace is even more exaggerated. There are very few low-level wizards and priests. The Furnace is really cruel. Navy Commander Raymondy went against all the odds and wanted to award the flag of Oyster Bay Port to the Furnace. At that time, Goulet was opposed to it. Now seeing the results of the Furnace, he felt that the commander was the commander, and it would be too miserable to go against the Furnace. Goulet made his own assessment and found that his fleet's performance would only get worse when facing the Crucible. Without the Furnace, he would never have attacked the Martini Islands with just a few level 7 alchemy weapons. "Mr. Furnace, what should I do next?" When he first boarded the flagship, Forge also studied the weapons system of the flagship. Later, after Duke showed Forge the trump card of the Constitutional Army, Forge lost interest in the weapons system on the flagship. "You fight as normal and don't worry about me. I'll find an opportunity to assassinate Barat." Lieutenant General Goulet looked a little embarrassed when he heard this answer. He wanted to say that it was not the crux of the problem that the Constitutional Army controlled the melting pot, but that whether the melting pot controlled the constitutional army was what Gulay was more concerned about. From what the furnace meant, this fleet held down 2 level 7 apostles, and then the furnace acted as an assassin. The problem is, Gulay would rather have the furnace hold down 2 level 7 apostles, and then the furnace can be used as an assassin. How perfect! Gulay thought so, but did not dare to say so. The furnace can help the constitutional army deal with the ancient Sea Wizards Association, which has made the big shots in the parliament jump with joy. Gulay could only say, "Mr. Furnace, we are waiting for your good news." "No problem, just wait for the good news." Gulay originally didn't want the witch hunters to steal the limelight, and it was even more so now. If there was no bullet, then the furnace would join them in a frontal attack. In that case, Gulay would be much more relaxed, and the loss of the fleet would be minimal. The ship is getting closer and closer to the big island. The attack range of the main gun is the furthest, and the main gun on the bow begins to attack. The level 7 alchemy main gun on the flagship and the level 6 alchemy main gun on the other ships fired almost at the same time. The black hole vortex of the Great Priest of Annihilation, Canute, has very strong defensive capabilities and is suitable for handling level 7 alchemy shells. The speed of the shells was very fast, and Canute had to concentrate on setting up the vortex in advance. Belat was in charge of other alchemy shells. The damn furnace wiped out all the middle-level wizards in the Wizarding Association, causing Belat to have to do these things himself. In the cabin at this time, Rudolph listened to the sound of gunfire outside, waiting for Duke to turn on the code device of the level 8 alchemical bullet again. "Duke, please hurry up, or Belat's counterattack will begin." "I understand, I'm speeding up." "Why not open it in advance? It can save a lot of time." "Opening it early will increase the risk of losing level 8 alchemy bullets, which is absolutely not allowed." "Lost? Are you afraid of losing your bullet when I'm here?" "Oh. Could it be me you're talking about? Did I make your bullet lose?" Director Duke turned his head and looked at the furnace. His eyes clearly said that you were right. Rudolph smiled and said, "Level 7 alchemical shells are very expensive. If you open them too late, you will waste a lot of them." "Mr. Furnace, please stop talking. If you want to use the level 8 alchemical bullets as soon as possible, don't bother me." Rudolph stopped talking. Opening the password device at ordinary times and opening the password device on the battlefield are completely two different concepts. Rudolph wondered why Duke was so slow. Duke also felt that time was passing very slowly. His movements were not fast enough, and his fingers were still shaking uncontrollably. After an unknown number of minutes, Duke finally opened the box, and the green bullet appeared in their field of vision again. Duke took out a special revolver, loaded the bullet into the revolver, and then carefully handed it to Rudolph. Rudolph took the revolver, the gun drooped naturally, and he walked to the porthole with the gun. Standing by the porthole, Rudolph observed the situation outside. "Duke, are the bullets loaded correctly?" "There are 5 cylinders, you didn't empty them, did you?" "This bullet has a large caliber, and the cylinder of the revolver can only hold 5 bullets. It's loaded. I've been playing with guns for many years, and I definitely loaded it in the correct cylinder." After more than 10 seconds, Rudolph asked while observing the battle outside, "Is the safety on? Do I have to turn on the safety before I shoot?" "The safety is on. It's definitely on. Don't doubt me anymore. If you ask me again, I think the responsibility will be piled on my head if this operation fails. Just you know." When the level 7 alchemical rocket was launched and rushed towards Belat with a long tail flame, Rudolph also raised his gun, pointed it at the porthole, and pulled the trigger. Duke was dumbfounded. "Don't you need to open the window? Didn't it hit the glass?" Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 633. Belat was not aware of the danger of instant death. Who would have thought that the enemy, hiding in the cabin of the ship, shot at him through a small porthole with a diameter no larger than that of a forearm? Canute was not aware of the 7th level alchemical rocket, which gave him a headache. This is the most frightening thing about alchemists. As long as they are given enough resources, they can turn all battles into unilateral saturation attacks with alchemical weapons. For other apostles, it is impossible to release a lot of 7th level attacks at the same time, because the power of apostles has an upper limit. For alchemists, there is no upper limit to attacks, only an upper limit to ammunition. At this time, facing 18 whistling 7th level alchemical rockets, Canute needs to be particularly careful. 5 black hole vortices appeared around him in succession. The speed of the rockets was very fast. Even if 5 black holes were a bit too much and a bit wasteful, it was much better than not being able to defend against a certain rocket. At this moment, Canute heard a strange explosion. This sound is very strange and recognizable. Canute will never forget this sound because he witnessed the death of the previous level 7 high priest. The previous level 7 annihilation high priest who was responsible for the missionary work of the northern continent was captured by the word spirit witch hunters of the Alchemy Council after leaving the port. The then commander of the Constitutional Army Navy personally took action and ended the life of the previous level 7 high priest with an 8th level alchemical bullet. At that time, the word spirit fanatics of the evil god cult were completely suppressed and did not predict that the evil god cult would suffer a major loss. Canute happened to be on the ship at that time. He was a subordinate of the high priest at that time, so he heard the sound of the 8th level alchemical bullet exploding. His first reaction was that he would not die, right? After a second, when he found that he was intact, he reacted and turned his head and looked at the source of the sound. 50 meters away from him, half of Belat was standing in the mud. The level 8 alchemical bullet exploded, and a huge alchemical power bloomed between Bella's eyebrows. When Canute saw Bella, a translucent light shield with a diameter of 1 meter appeared with Bella's head as the center of the circle. The light shield was like a bright red light bead. The closer to the center of the light bead, the more condensed the light. Canute knew that it was not an ordinary light, but a rich level 8 alchemical power. Under such a powerful level 8 alchemical power, Bella's healing ability would not work at all. Bella's head, shoulders, arms, chest, and abdomen all disappeared, leaving only 2 legs stuck in the mud, connected by a small part of the hip. Half of the robe fell to the ground, revealing the terrible wound on the hip. If it was the previous Bella, no injury could kill him, but the problem now was that his Delphinus star power had been burned clean before it could take effect. Bella died very thoroughly, died in an instant, and only half of the body was left. At this moment, Canute remembered the fear that had been suppressed by the Alchemy Council for 200 years. You never know what level of alchemical weapons are carried on the ships of the Constitutional Navy. The mass-produced alchemical weapons have exerted a huge pressure on other apostles. For example, now, that seemingly ordinary steamship actually hides an 8th level alchemical bullet. From the way this alchemical bullet works, Canute is very sure that this is the method of the Crucible. Southern Cross Assassin. Only the Southern Cross Wizard who has the strongest offensive weapon is a qualified assassin. The rumor is true, the Crucible really has an 8th level alchemical bullet. Canute suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and he tried hard to recall the rumor. According to the rumor, how many 8th level alchemical bullets did the Crucible have? Without waiting to recall the accurate information, Canute took action first by instinct. Canute laid 7 black hole vortexes behind him, and then turned around and fled without looking back. With his hair standing on end, his eyes almost popping out, and his pupils shrinking to the smallest, Canute knew that in the next second, he might be killed by a level 8 alchemical bullet at any time. At this time, the war of faith, the hatred of the mass death of priests, and the believers stranded on the island were all no match for Canute's desire to escape. Some time ago, Canute wrote a letter to comfort the level 7 white magic high priest Jacob. In fact, he looked down on Jacob in his heart. Jacob ruined the entire navy of the White Magic Church and more than a dozen ships of priests. In the end, he fled back to the temple alone and is still suffering from divine punishment. I still remember that in the letter to Jacob, Canute comforted Jacob that the furnace was a special wizard, so special that no one had appeared in hundreds of years. There was nothing he could do about it. Too many people were defeated in front of the furnace. Now, Canute no longer laughs at Jacob. He has become the second Jacob. Laughing at Jacob, understanding Jacob, and becoming Jacob, he also abandoned all the priests, abandoned all the believers, and fled alone in a hurry. Behind the porthole, Rudolph signaled Director Duke to come over. He pointed at the small black dot that Canute had fled away and said, "If you were not so stingy, if you took out another level 8 alchemical bullet, how could the Annihilation High Priest have a chance to escape? The opportunity to deal with 2 level 7 heretic apostles at once was wasted by you." Rudolph shook his head and added, "You alchemists are not good, you are not generous, and you can't accomplish anything great." Facing the close-up taunting of the furnace, Duke, who was squeezed in the porthole with the furnace, felt that the furnace was right. To the north, there is the restless Meguen Empire, to the west, there are werewolves who are determined to get the power of destruction, to the east, there are noble knights fighting fiercely, and to the south, there are evil gods seeking to return to the northern continent. In such a severe situation, the Alchemy Council is still strictly enforcing the special procedures for level 8 alchemical bullets, which makes Duke look very short-sighted and stupid in front of the furnace. He still has to defend himself, Mr. Furnace, letting a wizard master the right to fire level 8 alchemical bullets is the limit of what we can do. What if I give you 2 and you take 1? That's exactly what I want to say, Director Duke, I can work for you, but the prerequisite is that after a few shots, you should give me an 8-level alchemical bullet. Isn't that too much? The furnace actually put forward conditions. Duke thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. The furnace was not a great philanthropist, so how could it always work for the Alchemy Council? I can't judge whether it's excessive or not. I can report it to the Parliament and let the Parliament decide. How many times do you want to fight for an 8th-level alchemical bullet? 3 for 1, how about that? I promise that my alchemical bullet will never be shot at any alchemist. You fight for the Parliament 3 times, and the Parliament gives you an 8th-level alchemical bullet, that's not too much. This time it's a gift to you, so you can have a taste of the sweetness. 8th-level alchemical bullets are simply a waste in your hands. Give them to me, give them all to me, and I will give you a world without enemies, Rudolph said. I hope your enemies will be more rampant, so that you can realize my role. I wish us a happy cooperation in the future. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 634. Director Duke reached out to Rudolph and motioned for Rudolph to return the revolver to him. This revolver is just an ordinary gun. Forge has the ability of the Southern Cross assassin. There is no need to equip him with a famous gun. What Duke wants is the bullet casing. After getting the revolver, Director Duke carefully opened the cartridge nest, took out the cartridge case, put the cartridge case back into the box, and locked the box again. The locking method is still a complex cryptographic device composed of alchemical copper wires. Level 8 alchemy bullets are so important to the Council that even the bullet casings are recycled so preciously. Rudolph quickly walked to the door and left here. After arriving on the deck, the shadow of a sail on Rudolph's body flashed away, allowing Rudolph to fly quickly to the shore. Upon seeing this, Vice Admiral Goulet quickly sent the Marines to land. He knew what the furnace wanted to do. The relics of the level 7 Northern Wizard Bharat were still there. It seemed that the furnace wanted to get that relic as soon as possible. In this regard, Gulay is not prepared to fight against the furnace. Relics are the core demand of wizards. Stealing the wizard's relics is equivalent to robbing the wizard's life. The wizard will really fight you. It is irrational and foolish to fight against the furnace. The furnace has many lives, but Gulay only has one life. Rudolph flew to the shore and flew to Barat's legs, which were immobilized in the mud. The severed leg was lifeless. On one side of the wound, there was a small piece of skin hanging like a filament of blood. The blood was emitting starlight. It was a relic of Barat's. After tearing off the small strip of skin, Rudolph held the bruise the size of his knuckle. The soft elastic had a jelly-like texture. This was the first level 7 relic Rudolph had obtained. Last time I encountered a level 7 werewolf, the power of the apostle in the level 7 werewolf was sucked away by Yvonne when she was promoted, resulting in the level 7 werewolf leaving no level 7 relics. The relic disappeared into Rudolph's hand and entered the star map. A meteor crossed the star map, flew towards the star field of Taurus in the star map, and hit the star Zeta Taurus. The progress of Taurus reached 5/10. 3 suspended stars fell from the Taurus star. These are the rewards obtained from the relics of the level 7 water wizard. Rudolph is looking forward to it very much. Level 7 flesh resurrection technique, level 7 dolphin serum, level 7 northern scorpio and tiger secret technique. The level 7 flesh resurrection technique should be a healing witchcraft based on the ability of plague vectors. It is very rare, but Rudolph does not need it. Wouldn't it be better to die after being injured? That would be so easy. The level 7 dolphin serum should be a witchcraft, and it may be a one-time witchcraft. The serum is used to inject into the human body. I don't know what effect it has. It should be very powerful if the level 7 witchcraft is used as a disposable item. Unfortunately, Rudolph would not choose this one-time witchcraft weapon. He chose the third item, the level 7 Northern Scorpio and Tiger Constellation. North Scorpio and Tiger Secret. Astrology Chart, Scorpion Tiger Hexagram. Main Relic, Level 7 Living Corpse Relic. Sub-Relics, Level 7 Oblivion Priest Relics or Level 7 Water Elemental Wizard Relics, Level 7 Deception Priest Relics. Ceremony Location, Lacerda Direct Area, Hevelius Observatory. Rudolph was stunned when he saw the main relic. It turned out to be a Level 7 Living Corpse Relic. Where can I find a Level 7 zombie? Level 7 living zombies are difficult to kill. Cooper's current escape ability can be said to be second only to Rudolph, who has maxed out his escape skills. What means will he use to obtain a Level 7 Living Corpse Relic? The rarity of the main relic also proves that the ability of this secret formula must be very powerful. Rudolph already has one of the sub-relics, the Water Element Wizard Relic. The key is the second sub-relic, the Level 7 Deceitful Priest Relic. As he got to know the high-level apostles, Rudolph felt more and more that those big shots were cold-blooded and greedy. Therefore, Rudolph deliberately avoided communicating with the deception cards, not wanting to get involved with an existence like the evil god Deception. However, this secret formula actually requires a Level 7 Fraud Priest Relic. What should we do? Is it too late to read the actor's self-cultivation from now on? Can he trick the evil god into deceiving him? Scorpion tiger is the collective name for lizards and chameleons in the northern continent. This secret formula should be related to the ability of lizards or chameleons. They are very powerful water element northern constellations. One of the secondary relics needed for the Lacerda secret formula is the Level 7 Annihilation Priest Relic and the Level 7 Water Wizard Relic. Rudolph suddenly lost interest in the escaped Canute, and it was useless to get Newt's relic. Repeat. If Canute knew Rudolph's thoughts, I don't know whether he would be happy or extremely happy. This is the first time that the Southern Cross Wizard and Level 8 Alchemy Bullet have been combined together, and they have achieved perfect results. One of the reasons why Belat has been able to keep the ancient sea wizards arrogant for so long is that the Delphinus wizard is difficult to kill and can recover quickly from multiple injuries. However, no matter how powerful the recovery ability is, it is useless in front of a level 8 alchemy bullet that can definitely hit. Rudolph believed that if he was given an unlimited supply of level 8 alchemy bullets, he could clean up all the level 7 apostles in the world. If those level 8 apostles were not careful, they would also be killed by Rudolph in a sneak attack. It is a pity that the Alchemy Council does not have such courage. Of course, Rudolph knows that he is not worthy of their trust. The Ancient Sea Wizards Guild was a stubborn problem for the Alchemy Council. The Alchemy Council was forced to have no choice but to take out a level 8 alchemy bullet. The Furnace has mastered the abilities of the Southern Cross Assassins. After their evaluation, they concluded that the Furnace has a very strong hatred for the Ancient Sea Wizards. After the Furnace gets the bullet, it is very likely that the Furnace will actually fire one for Belat, and they will not take the risk of stealing the bullet. Only then did this action pass. Rudolph stood alone on the beach. Neither the Marines who had landed on the beach, nor the wizards or priests of the Wizard Association disturbed him. They didn't dare. The sound of gunfire from afar reminded Rudolph that the battle was not over yet. He suddenly remembered Belat's roundhouse villa at the bottom of the lake, which contained a room full of wizard books. He didn't have time last time, so he had to take a good look this time to see what was written in Belat's books. No space wizards were found around Belat. Could it be that he was damaged by a level 8 alchemical bullet? That would be a big loss. I hope to find other space wizards in Belat's underwater palace. On this island flooded by seawater, the ground was full of dried sea fish or starfish. There were a lot of silt and puddles on the ground, and it was impossible to step on it. Rudolph flew in the air and flew to the island's heart lake. Not far from the coast, Rudolph saw the Constitutional Army soldiers who were holding believers. The Constitutional Army soldiers did not directly execute these believers. I don't know how they will deal with so many believers in the end. The low-level wizards who were still alive surrendered to the Marines one by one. When they saw the Furnace flying over, they were afraid and dodged, afraid that the Furnace would look at them more. Pisces wizards are very useful to the Navy. They can work on the seabed and it is very convenient to deploy underwater weapons. As for the priests, the Marine officers will execute them directly after they are captured. For the Constitutional Army, priests are worthless and only cause trouble. This makes Rudolph very satisfied. Those who play with other people's spiritual beliefs should die even if they are innocent. The wizards accompanying the Constitutional Army collected relics beside the bodies of the priests. When they saw the Furnace flying over, they saluted one after another. For the powerful Furnace, these wizards respected from the bottom of their hearts. The relics of the priests can be made into magic tools to enhance the strength of the Constitutional Army Navy. It is said that wizards must die, but all forces will not let go of such a powerful tool as magic tools. They are very skilled in using them one by one. The process of collecting relics and making magic tools is very mature. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 635. Along the way, wherever Rudolph went, others avoided him, and he soon came to the entrance of the underwater corridor. Entering the glass corridor, when the water was shallow at first, the sun shone on the sparkling lake water, and the rhythmic beams of light penetrated through the water, passed through the arched glass roof, and shone on the ground, illuminating the sparkling patterns. It is said that water can calm people. I don't know what mood Bellatrix is in every time he walks through this corridor. Rudolph is in a good mood today. A big force that is hostile to him has completely become history, and there will never be an organization called the Ancient Sea Wizard Association to bother him again. Don't worry about whether he used the level 8 alchemical bullet to take shortcuts. Being able to take shortcuts is also a kind of ability. Why doesn't the Alchemical Council find others to take shortcuts? Rudolph, who was in a good mood, continued to go deeper with brisk steps. The sunlight became weaker and weaker, and the bottom of the lake became darker and darker. The mechanisms and defenses along the way were destroyed by Vanya, and Rudolph went straight to the underwater palace. He knocked on the door of the room in the left area first, and soon 3 beautiful women came out. Rudolph took out the level 7 relic dolphin bleeding and said, "This is Bellatrix's relic. I don't know what your relationship with Bellatrix is. You can leave now." He thought that the 3 women were kidnapped by Bellatrix and forced to be imprisoned here. However, after seeing Bellatrix's relic, the reactions of the 3 women were beyond Rudolph's expectations. One woman burst into tears, with despair written all over her face. One woman began to curse Rudolph, and another woman rushed towards Rudolph and was about to attack him. Not knowing whether it was Stockholm Syndrome or true love, Rudolph didn't want to delve into it, and didn't want to see the 3 women go crazy. Several starlight water snakes stabbed out, poisoning the 3 women, and then the starlight water snakes dragged them towards the exit. Rudolph suddenly remembered something and kept a woman, asking the starlight water snakes not to drag her away for the time being. It's not that this woman is so beautiful. Rudolph wants to know where Bella's legacy is. When he just got Bella's relics, he didn't find Bella's space magic weapon. Squatting in front of this woman, Rudolph opened her eyes. Rudolph used the memory reading ability of the word Spirit Larry on this woman, and the memory of this woman began to emerge in his vision. Even the word spirit rarely reads other people's memories. If reading memories is just to see the pictures that others have seen before, it is still simpler, nothing more than watching a long and boring movie, but reading memories also includes feeling the other person's emotions, and emotions are also a kind of memory. When reading memories, Rudolph will not only see the pictures that the other person has seen, but also experience the other person's emotional memory all the time. This feeling is not wonderful. Resentment, jealousy, desire, Rudolph really wants to punch this woman. She doesn't do anything every day and thinks about useless things. Finally, Rudolph found the picture he was looking for and found the emotion he was looking for. Curious, this woman has been curious about one thing for a long time. There is a big fish swimming in this lake. There is a secret exit in this underwater palace. Belath often goes out from the exit to find the big fish. The woman is most curious about the big fish. The fish is not an ordinary fish. She guesses that it may be a starlight creation used by Belath to store wealth. Knowing this is enough. This woman is just Belath's plaything and will not know more. Rudolph quickly got out of the woman's memory. The feeling of reading the memory was very bad. If it was not necessary, Rudolph did not want to try it again. After reading the memory, the woman also woke up. After she woke up, she looked at Rudolph with confusion. "Who are you? Why are you here?" This is another side effect of reading the memory, which will cause the person whose memory is read to permanently lose some of his memory. After the woman was confused, she covered her head and began to roll. The severe headache made her twitch constantly. After poisoning her again, Rudolph let the starlight snake drag her out. As for how the Constitutional Army Marines outside would deal with the 3 women, Rudolph didn't care. Rudolph looked at Bella's study, then looked up from the glass arch to the deep water at the bottom of the lake, and decided to study Bella's collection of books later. Knowledge is worthless in front of wealth, and the legacy of the Wizard Association is more touching. Rudolph quickly found the exit at the end of Bella's maintenance room. After opening a door, there was another small room inside. This small room has 2 doors, front and back. After closing the first door and opening the second door, the lake water poured into this compartment. After swimming out of the second door, Rudolph waited silently. He held Bella's relics in his hand, allowing Bella's relics to emit star power. The touch of this mass of blood was very bad. Even if it was a dead object, it was still wriggling, like a soft jellyfish. A few minutes later, a 3-meter-long taimen swam towards Rudolph. The fish suddenly stopped swimming forward, a little hesitant. There was indeed the master's star power at the exit, but it was different from usual. It had never encountered such a strange situation. Just as the fish hesitated, a starlight ship suddenly appeared at the bottom of the water, and the starlight ship completely wrapped the tame salmon. Rudolph also appeared in the starlight ship. The tame salmon on the floor kept bending its body and jumping. It looked like a real fish, but Rudolph knew that it was a starlight creation, and a special starlight creation. After Belat died, his starlight dolphin also died, but this tame salmon was alive and looked as realistic as a live fish. Rudolph guessed that this was a starlight creation used by the ancient sea wizards to pass on their wealth. In other words, this was a collection of the ancient sea wizards for hundreds of years. The ancient sea wizards, which has a history of at least 300 years, must have a lot of wealth. It's a bit exciting to think about it. There won't be piles of relics in it, right? But we can't have too much expectations. Some organizations look very powerful, and they are among the top 500 in the world, but they are strong in debt. It's hard to say. Rudolph took the inheritance of Redbeard and Giant Roberts. The two were pirates, and their wealth was not amazing. They maintained a lifestyle of drinking and living in the present moment. Pirates all do this. When they have robbed enough, they go to the tavern to get drunk and die, until they spend the last copper shield and are thrown out of the tavern. The ancient sea wizards have been passed down for 300 years, so they should be better than the two pirates. The wizards' space items all use the same witchcraft language, the Cancer witchcraft language plus the relics of the High Priest. This fish just added some other witchcraft language based on these two cores. Rudolph put the relics of Bellatrix on the Taman, and Taman stopped struggling. It seems that it recognizes Bellatrix's star power. Soon, Rudolph found the core of this wizard weapon. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 636. Rudolph used Belat's relics to open the belly of the fish and poured out everything inside. First, there were some large deposit certificates. The ancient Sea Wizard Association had secret accounts in the banks of the Carolingian Kingdom, the United States of Cantal, and the Meguen Empire. Rudolph added them up and found that there were about 18 million gold shields in deposits in more than a dozen banks in the three countries. This is a huge sum of money, but how should I put it? As a wizard organization that has been passed down for 300 years, Rudolph felt that it was a bit too little. But this is also Rudolph's own fault. The Wizard Association has had bad luck in the past 2 years and has suffered several setbacks at the hands of Rudolph. It can be said that the income is not enough. Rudolph is also responsible for the small deposit. I didn't see the secret formula. The secret formula should be a secret passed down by word of mouth in the Wizard Association, and it is not put in a book here. 6 level 5 relics, divided into 2 parts, the relics needed for the South Sky Hydra secret and the relics needed for the South Sky Swordfish secret. These should be the relics prepared by the wizards to train new level 5 wizards. These relics are all Rudolph's previous ones. They cannot light up the star map. They can be used to make magic tools and give them to others or leave them to 2 students, or as rewards to the wizards of the shipping company. Since Rudolph's reputation as the furnace became popular, wizards will find the volcano every once in a while and want to join Rudolph. Mackenzie will help Rudolph to check, and those wizards with bad intentions will be rejected by Mackenzie. Mackenzie can reject 9 out of 10. 2 level 6 relics, one is the level 6 alchemist relic, and the other is the level 6 mid-sky Cetus wizard relic. Unfortunately, Rudolph also has these 2 relics. As the relics are collected, there are more and more duplicate relics, and fewer fresh relics. Before Rudolph came to Saragosi, Saragosi was not so chaotic, and the Wizard Association did not have the opportunity to hunt too many relics. Rudolph suspected that this level 6 whale wizard relic was voluntarily left to the Wizard Association after the previous whale wizard died. A payment receipt from a shipyard in the United States of Cantal. With this receipt, and paying 20% of the contract, you can take away 2 latest model steamships there. Looking at the time note on the agreement, you can take over these 2 ships in another month. 3 port shareholding agreements. 1 is the port of Navali in the southern continent. Rudolph dare not go to this, but it can be sold at the Black Gold. Maybe someone wants these shares. 1 is the port shares of the great pirate Xuanhuan. It turns out that the Wizard Association has some connection with Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan's port was taken back by the evil god cult. I don't know if this shareholding agreement can still be sold at a price. It is estimated that it is difficult. Another one is the shareholding agreement of the small port Danny Port, which is the port of Celine's hometown. This must be very popular. The remaining things were not very valuable, and Rudolph planned to sell them all at the Black Gold. After collecting these legacies, Rudolph returned to the underground palace and walked to Belat's studio, where there were many books. I wanted to take a closer look last time. The Wizards Club lost power and used the Antarctic cold air to extract heat, trying to use these childish means to deal with Rudolph, but unfortunately Rudolph had a way to counter. There was no light in the studio. Rudolph took out a white magic light bead and let the light bead float on the ceiling. The brightness provided by the light bead illuminated the room. After roughly looking at the label on the spine of the book, Rudolph first took out a book about the history of the founding of the Ancient Sea Wizards Club. The founder of the Ancient Sea Wizards Club was a Pisces wizard who went to the southern continent for promotion. This founder was very charismatic and had a boat full of friends on his ship. During the promotion process, the founder had a conflict with another wizard because of a relic. The wizard was very strong and his methods were cunning and changeable. In the end, he killed the founder's friends. The founder was finally promoted and avenged his friends, but his hatred for other wizards became stronger and stronger. After the creation of the Ancient Sea Wizard Association, under his influence, the Wizard Association particularly liked to deal with wizards who went to the southern continent for promotion. The Kingdom of Elba on the north coast of the Sarah Ancient Sea and the evil god cult on the south coast liked such a wizard association very much. The Ancient Sea Wizard Association grew stronger and stronger, and at its peak, there was an 8th level Archpole wizard. Now the Wizard Association has become history. The Martini Islands were captured by the Constitutional Army, and the leader of the Wizard Association, a 7th level wizard, also died from an 8th level alchemical bullet. There are many basic books for wizards here. For low-level wizards, wizard language is the most critical, involving the basic characteristics and application methods of the 12 constellations. Rudolph saw many wizard notes, including notes of water wizards such as Pisces wizards and Cancer wizards, as well as notes of wizards of other constellations such as Libra wizards and Taurus wizards. After flipping through them roughly, Rudolph was a little disappointed. Many of the records in these notes were wrong. In Rudolph's opinion, anything different from what the star map says is wrong. The star map taught Rudolph a lot of constellation witchcraft, and it never made a mistake. The star map also taught Rudolph a lot of precious constellation secrets, and it also didn't make a mistake. Rudolph planned to take the remaining books back and read them slowly. As a poor student, he couldn't read for a long time. Once he read for more than 10 minutes, he would be very sleepy because of too much effort. He walked out of the underground palace with a lot of gains. In the glass corridor, Rudolph and Duke and his group bumped into each other head-on. Seeing the furnace appear here, Duke felt both unexpected and reasonable. "Mr. Furnace, what's in Belat's underground palace?" "What is there?" Rudolph moved aside and made way for Duke and his men. "You will know if you go and see it. This underwater palace is quite interesting." "Mr. Furnace, I mean, should we discuss how the wizard's wealth should be divided?" "How to divide it?" Rudolph stared at Duke until Duke felt a little embarrassed. I understand, it has been divided, right? Seeing Duke so sensible, Rudolph smiled and said, my things have been divided, and everything you can see next belongs to you, dear Director Duke. Looking at the brisk steps of Furnace, Duke understood that Furnace must have reaped a lot. Thinking about it, if he got the wealth of the Wizards Association and the space magic tools of the Wizards Association, he might not be able to open them. Furnace is different. Furnace is a powerful wizard, and it must be very easy for him to open those space magic tools. Sighing and shaking his head, Duke felt that this was the only way. It was not bad to get the Martini Islands, at least a cancer was removed. By the way, Director Duke, I'm serious about what I said before. I'll help you 3 times in exchange for a level 8 alchemical bullet. When you go back, ask the Parliament for me to see if they are interested in this deal. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 637. Will you establish a base here? Yes, we will build a fort here to declare to the evil god cult that this is our sphere of influence and prevent the evil god cult from transporting believers to the Eagle's Beak Peninsula through here. Listening to Lieutenant General Goulet's explanation, Rudolph felt that this should be the case. The island that was finally conquered must of course be included in the sphere of influence. After the battle, it was a bit troublesome to deal with the aftermath. For the priests and servants of the gods, the constitutional army directly executed them without distinction. There were not many of them, and it was over quickly. As for the believers, the constitutional army spent a long time persuading them to voluntarily hand over the evil ritual artifacts obtained from the temple. Without the ritual vessels, they cannot awaken as servants of God. After the incident was over, the constitutional army was not at ease yet. They searched each person one by one and could not miss a single evil ritual weapon. These believers are not apostles, they are worse than servants of God. The Elba Alchemy Council is very short of people. Their policy is that believers must also fight for it. As long as they do not awaken to be servants of God, they will not be executed and then slowly arrange jobs for them. Let them break away from their beliefs and become normal people. This matter was very time-consuming. Vice Admiral Goulet thought that the furnace would be impatient, but the furnace kept watching with relish. Lieutenant General Goulet felt that the rumors were indeed true. The furnace and the evil god cult were really incompatible with each other. The furnace could spend a long time looking at such a boring thing as recruiting followers without feeling tired at all. As more and more believers renounced their faith, the work of the constitutional army became more and more successful. Using food and the future as bait, these believers finally had to accept the reality. They cursed the evil god one by one, swore to give up on the sunset, and then lined up to board the warship of the Constitutional Army Navy. The Constitutional Army doesn't care how many of these believers really give up their faith. As long as they live better in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula than in the southern continent, they will gradually become normal people. After returning to Port Belfort, Rudolph couldn't wait to rush to the Black Gold Institute. He had a lot of things to sell and turn the things of the ancient Sea Wizards Guild into his own. The news that the fleet had won the battle spread like wildfire, and the Black Gold Institute had already known the news. When Rudolph entered the Black Gold Institute, not only Celine was waiting for him, the guide and the trading host were all standing at the door, looking at Rudolph eagerly. I know I'm a fat person now, but can you please calm down your eyes and stop being so naked? The guide Merriweather said with a smile, we are just worried that Miss Celine will not be able to handle the transaction later. After all, there is likely to be an astronomical figure today. I heard that except for the Martini Islands and believers, the Parliament didn't get anything of value. They will be happy if they can get the archipelago and the precious population. The things belonging to the Wizarding Association do not belong to them in the first place. The wizards in the world are one family. Of course, the things belonging to the Wizarding Association are also mine. Meriwether thought the furnace was too much. Is there such a family? The people from the Black Gold Institute welcomed Rudolph into a luxuriously decorated conference room in the hotel. Rudolph sat on one side, and on the other side were 5 people dedicated to serving Rudolph. Rudolph first took out a stack of deposit certificates from the Wizards Guild. This is the deposit of the Wizards Guild, totaling more than 18 million gold shields. Rudolph felt that this number was small, but the people at the Black Gold Institute did not think it was small. Meriwether believed that even the speaker of the Eagle Beak province might not have so much cash. This money is stored in different banks. I hope you will purchase these certificates of deposit directly and give them to me in cash. I just want to take away the cash now. It is not safe to store it in any bank in any kingdom, and it can easily be confiscated by those kingdoms. For example, my deposit in the Carolingian kingdom had been confiscated by them before I had time to withdraw it. Thinking of this, I was so sad that I couldn't sleep all night. Next time I go back, I must deal with the MPS who control the bank. Confiscating my money is shameless, so shameless. I have a space magic weapon with an amazing capacity. Please give me cash. It would be more beneficial to me to exchange it for cash. Do you think the reputation of a bank is the most important thing? This is also what banks promote. If there is any accident, the bank will always be eager to default and then embezzle depositors' deposits. You should also add that this is a special case and such behavior will not affect the bank's credibility. Facing the requirements of the furnace, the assistant beside Meriwether was constantly calculating something on paper, and finally reported to Meriwether in a low voice. Meriwether, the guide, nodded frequently, and then said, "Mr. Furnace, we are willing to purchase these certificates of deposit for 15 million gold shields. About 17% of the handling fee." Meriwether felt that the handling fee was too high, and he quickly made an excuse: "I didn't go to the bank with the deposit receipt to transfer the money. There were some illegal operations involved. You know, alchemists like your illegal operations the most, so there is a reason for the lion to open his mouth. It will cost a lot of money, we can't make much, and many of them have to be hired as alchemists. When you said you didn't make much money, I knew you were making a lot of money. But I agree, if you give me 15 million gold shields, preferably the gold shields of the Mogwen Empire, you can take away the more than 18 million gold shields certificate of deposit." Meriwether could still remain calm, but the expression on the face of the assistant beside him was about to fly. "Oh, by the way, this transaction will all be attributed to my exclusive trader, Miss Celine." "Of course, Mr. Furnace." The assistant's expression immediately fell, which made Rudolph feel a little funny. Rudolph lost a lot in the first transaction, but there was no way. Others could not swallow such a huge amount of deposits. Only the other empires and kingdoms where the black gold was located had the energy to withdraw the money from these deposits, otherwise these deposits would be a piece of waste paper. Rudolph himself could not go to the Megwen Empire or the Carolingian kingdom to run to more than a dozen banks. Rudolph took out 3 more shareholding agreements, Danny Port, Nauyi Port, and the shareholding agreement of the original Tangzi Mealy Pirate Port. "See how much you are willing to buy it?" The 3 shareholding agreements were pushed in front of Meriwether, and he looked at them excitedly. As a force stronger than pirates on the Sarah Ancient Sea, the Ancient Sea Wizards have deep ties with the forces on both sides of the Ancient Sea. For example, these ports, I don't know how the Ancient Sea Wizards did it, and they all bought shares in the ports of several parties. This time, another assistant began to calculate on the notebook. After a few minutes of calculation, he came up with a result. Meriwether looked at the numbers on the notebook and nodded. He said to Rudolph, "Mr. Furnace, among these shares, we think that the pirate port of Tan-chested Miri is not valuable. That port has been blown up and is located in a remote area. Not many ships will go there. We are willing to purchase the remaining shares of Port Navali and Port Danny at a price of 7.63 million gold shields. Rudolph nodded. The number was rounded, as if he had calculated it carefully. Okay, that's it. How many days can you give me this cash? 10 days, please give me 10 days, and I will allocate the gold shields you need from the surrounding black gold offices. It's worthy of being a black gold office. It can take out so much cash in such a short time. There's no way. Many transactions are illegal. The demand for anonymous private transactions is very strong. We must save enough cash. That's all I'm selling. Next, I want to buy something. Mr. Merriweather, I want to buy a piece of news. What news? News about a level 6 druid or a level 6 druid relic. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 638. News about the 6th level druid, or the 6th level druid relic. This means that it doesn't matter whether it's life or death, or whether it's cold or alive. Fortunately, this room is full of wizards, and other apostles will not be able to bear such murderous words. For a wizard, it is a very common statement that he needs a certain relic, just like people need to drink water and eat. But for other apostles, this sentence contains trembling fear. After thinking for a while, Merriweather said, 6th level druids are not common, especially in recent kingdoms. The druids are unwilling to get involved in the war. They have all hidden in the depths of the primeval forests and grasslands. Rudolph knew that this relic was difficult to obtain, so he was prepared to spend a long time to slowly find it. In the battle with the Wizard Association, Belat directly flooded the Martini Islands, just to eliminate all the fire sources on the island, so that Rudolph had no proof of resurrection. This is a hidden danger. Rudolph wants to accommodate a fire sign to increase his fire ability and avoid the embarrassing situation of not having a resurrection certificate. If it is in a town, it is better. People always need a source of fire to live. But in the wilderness or on the sea, if there is no Cooper, then his resurrection will have a fatal flaw. It is better to plug this flaw early. Rudolph has mastered the secret formula of the Midheaven Sextant. This constellation is a fire sign, which is suitable for Rudolph at this time. He already has two secondary relics, the 6th level Alchemist relic and the 6th level White Magic Priest relic. What he lacks now is the main relic, the 6th level Druid relic or the 6th level Fire Wizard relic. Fire Wizards are not within Rudolph's consideration. The Pillar of Creation is an organization of Fire Wizards. If the Pillar of Creation is provoked, it will be troublesome. Rudolph does not want to be involved with them now. It is safer to find a druid. Celine reminded, Mr. Merriweather, I remember that the big smuggler Snag wanted to cooperate with Mr. Furnace through us. He has great power. Maybe he can get the druid relics or news about the druids. Merriweather nodded, indeed, Snag's interests are deeply tied to the Parliament. He is the black glove of many big figures in the Parliament. Maybe there are druid relics in the Parliament. Mr. Furnace, we will find out the news for you as soon as possible. If there is any news about the druid relics, we will notify you immediately. To Rudolph's surprise, Rudolph met Snag himself that night. In the VIP suite of the Black Gold Institute, Rudolph saw the haggard big smuggler Snag. Snag said, I won't hide anything from you. I came to Belfour a few days ago and wanted to see you here. I was very anxious when I learned that you were going to deal with the ancient sea wizards. I was afraid that the wizards would not know what was good for you and cause you trouble and delay your time. Rudolph smiled, as if it was easy to deal with the wizards. Although it was quite different from the facts, Rudolph liked to hear these flattering words. Mr. Snag, do you want to make a deal with me? Before coming, Celine told Rudolph privately that one of Snag's fleets was sunk by the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy inspected the fleet and finally determined that the fleet was not a civilian ship, but a smuggling ship used to smuggle war materials. Snag suffered a huge loss, which made him unable to deliver in front of the big man. The cargo on the ship contained the goods of the big man, so he was looking for people who were not afraid of the Royal Navy. He had two choices, one was to find the evil god cult, and the other was to find the former big pirate, the current Volcano Shipping Company. Mr. Furness, in the past, the Elbe Alchemy Council and the Cantal United States relied on civilian ships to exchange goods. However, the Royal Navy broke this tacit understanding. They completely cut off the Sarago Sea and no longer allowed trade between the East and the West. They have two goals. The first is to strike at the commercial activities of the Elbe Alchemy Council and thus weaken the council. The second is to coerce the Cantal United States. The goods originally given to the Elbe Alchemy Council have to be transferred to the royal family. If the Cantal United States wants to digest their goods, it can only choose the Elbe royal family. A batch of my important goods was confiscated by the Royal Navy and the ship was sunk by them. They used this method to announce that the Alchemy Council and the Cantal United States would no longer be allowed to trade. Therefore, I came to you to see if you have any way to open up this route. Seeing that Furness was a little hesitant, Snag immediately said, in fact, the Royal Navy can only control the Sarago Sea if the route is chosen to be closer to the south, away from the Royal Navy in the north and the Evil God Navy in the south. It is possible to pass through that sea area. You are talking about the ideal state. In fact, that means dealing with both the Royal Navy in the north and the Evil God Navy in the south. Rudolph frowned. This route is very dangerous. Snag understood that the Furness was raising the price, and he hurriedly said, Mr. Furness, Ms. Celine of the Black Gold Institute told me that you need a level 6 Druid relic. I can guarantee this. The Black Gold Institute will be able to inspect the goods in 3 days. I will provide a level 6 Druid relic as the cost of your escort. The Alchemy Council has a good relationship with the Druids. They must have more ways to get the Druid relics. The Council did not hesitate to hand over the relics to the smugglers. I wonder if the Druids will be sad after hearing this news. Can I advance this relic? Hearing the Furness's sudden and shameless question, Snag was stunned and didn't know how to answer. When doing business, don't you just pay after the business is done? What is advance payment? Judging from Snag's expression, he didn't seem to accept it that way. Rudolph missed Marquis Palu a little. Marquis Palu asked Rudolph to help, but he directly paid for the relics in advance. It was so grand and made Rudolph feel happy. Now, Rudolph was not in a very happy mood, but there was nothing he could do about it. These alchemists' views were like this, and it seemed that Rudolph was a little unreasonable. Okay, just kidding, don't take it seriously. Mr. Snag, how many ships are you planning to send to the United States of Cantal this time? 8 cargo ships, 2 armed escort ships. Let's get rid of those 2 armed escort ships. If I can't defeat them, they can't defeat them either. Then I still have to protect those 2 armed escort ships. It's too troublesome. Okay. Mr. Furness, when the Black Gold Institute accepts the Druid relic, please be there. According to the principles of the Black Gold Exchange, the rewards for such transactions of huge value will be handed over to the Black Gold Exchange for safekeeping, so that both parties can feel more at ease and have an extra layer of guarantee. The ancient sea wizards still have 2 ships to be delivered in the shipyard of the United States of Cantal, and they just happen to go to pick them up together. That's right, Rudolph suddenly remembered something. I have a little dispute with the United States of Cantal. I am confident in passing through the waters controlled by the Royal Navy. But after entering the United States of Cantal, can you help me get a letter of introduction? I am not afraid of them, but I find it troublesome. It will also delay your business, won't it? A small holiday? How small? Hey, it's nothing. Just when I passed by last time, I sent away one of their speaker, a hospital director, and bulldozed a nitrogen fertilizer plant. When he was promoted to level 6 Hydra Wizard, Rudolph encountered Minamata disease on the Purple Sea. At that time, he did not expect that he would have to deal with the United States of Cantal in the future, leaving a small hidden danger. Snag swallowed bitterly. Is this a small festival? Is this what he calls a small festival? I'll give it a try. I'll try to find the top brass of the Constitutional Army and see if I can get a letter of introduction. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 639. For Rudolph's level 6 druid relic, the volcano and the giants set out from Belfort Port and headed for Oyster Bay Port first. The smuggler Snag's goods were at Oyster Bay Port. After receiving the goods at Oyster Bay Port, they would cross the Sarago Sea eastward. The 8 cargo ships at Oyster Bay Port had been loaded with goods for a long time, and they did not have enough armed escorts and dared not leave the port. As soon as he got ashore, Snag said to Rudolph, "I will try to find a way to make the United States of Cantal not pursue your little offenses. I am not afraid of them pursuing, but I am afraid that it will affect your business. Everything has its pros and cons. I dare to cross the Sarago Sea at this time, so it is inevitable that I will have some small troubles and problems. Please don't say the word small anymore. I am allergic to this word. There are no small things around you." Snag left worriedly. The furnace actually killed a speaker in the United States of Cantal. He didn't even know when the furnace committed the crime. Wasn't the furnace mainly active in the Sarago Sea? Fortunately, Snag really got a letter of introduction, which was very important and allowed the trial department of the United States of Cantal to temporarily exempt the furnace. Looking at the letter of introduction, Rudolph was stunned. What does it mean that after the war, the Elba Alchemy Council will assist the Cantal Council in jointly arresting the furnace? What does it mean? Are we going to kill the donkey before it even starts? Don't get excited. Isn't this just a delay? We have to give the Cantal United States a face. It's not appropriate for them to directly say that they will not pursue you anymore. Everyone pushes and delays. After the war is over, who knows what will happen? Okay, let me see who signed it. After the war is over, in order to avoid him causing trouble for me, I have to cause trouble for him first. Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army, Stein. Level 8 Alchemist? Okay, I'll remember him. Snag wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. The furnace dared to threaten the Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army. He signed another freight contract with Rudolph, preparing to fill up the giant as well. While waiting for loading, Rudolph saw some short-haired young men constantly coming in and out to check the goods. Snag said that this batch of goods was definitely civilian goods. So many tall young men wearing the same clothes, and they were all short-haired, it was impossible for them to be civilian supplies. The volcano, the giant, 8 cargo ships, and 1 supply ship, this huge fleet slowly left the port and headed for the United States of Cantal. On the previous route, the Navy of the Constitutional Army actually escorted from a distance. It seems that they attach great importance to this batch of goods. Leaving the waters controlled by the Constitutional Army, the fleet entered the waters controlled by the Royal Navy, and the speed was still not fast or slow. Rudolph wanted to go faster, but the speed of the freight ship could not be fast. Their route is located in the middle of the Sarago Sea, far away from the Royal Navy and the Evil God Navy. The two navies do not want to frequently conflict, so there is a dangerous corridor here for pirates or smuggling ships to pass. Pilot has been monitoring the surroundings with the level 5 magic weapon Sea Fish Eye to prevent the Royal Navy or the Evil God Navy from appearing. The Royal Navy has its own special monitoring method. There are 3 Druid officers on the ship of Vice Admiral Caleb, the son of the Marquis of Golden Anchor. The Druids manipulate seabirds. After several days of reconnaissance, they know that there is a large fleet passing through the sea. Are you sure the volcanic flag is flying? Yes, a fleet of 11 giant ships is very easy to find. Druids master natural spells. The seabirds they control are no different from ordinary seabirds. Unless there are high-level druids in the fleet, it is impossible to tell the difference between those seabirds. Reported, don't approach the volcano rashly. Caleb's fleet returned. He didn't want to confront the furnace directly. This matter should be left to his dear brother. The main task of the Royal Navy's Western Fleet is to defend the port of Quarter, while the Eastern Fleet must implement the will of the royal family, such as arresting criminals wanted by the royal family. Arresting smuggling ships is also one of the main responsibilities of the Eastern Fleet. I don't know if Kedrick can be as brave as before when fighting his biggest ally. Rudolph's fleet continued to sail on the sea for 2 weeks and entered the waters where the Royal Navy's Eastern Fleet appeared. Looking at the slow cargo ship, Rudolph knew that trouble would come sooner or later. After sailing for another week, one night Yvonne suddenly told Rudolph that she heard the Wolf King calling. Yvonne and the werewolf who made the call were both level 7 werewolves and were not affected by the call. It seems that the werewolves have not reached a consensus. They still die too little and don't understand the consequences of provoking us. Look at the evil god cult, it is much more honest now. After sailing for so long, passing through the waters of the Oblivion Church and the White Demon Church, they have not shown their heads. 2 days later, the Royal Navy's Eastern Fleet completed the encirclement of the huge freight fleet. The captains of the freight ships were terrified, and they all looked at the volcano, hoping that the volcano could create a miracle. These goods shipped to the Cantal United States were not valuable. Their most important purpose was to bring back more useful weapons raw materials from the Cantal United States. The Elba Alchemy Council had sufficient production capacity for alchemical metals, but there was a huge gap in alchemical gunpowder, so they wanted to use some alchemical metals to exchange for alchemical gunpowder in the Cantal United States. The Carolingian Alchemy Council bordering the north also mainly produced metal mines and did not have excess gunpowder minerals. This freight fleet only had one armed escort ship, the Volcano, which changed its course and headed straight for the flagship of the Royal Navy's Eastern Fleet. The Royal Navy's Western Fleet now has 2 flagships, one of which is the flagship of Count Nahur, and the other is more critical, which is the flagship of Marquis Nicta, one of the vice-captains of the Royal Knights. Volcano was fearless and came directly to the distance where both sides could see each other. On Count Nahur's flagship, Count Nahur and Kedrick looked at each other and saw the struggle and hesitation in each other's eyes. The former pirate port of Furness, Redbeard Port, is not far from the Royal Navy's Eastern Fleet. In several naval battles, Furness has helped the Eastern Fleet a lot from top to bottom, from Count Nahur to ordinary captains. The Eastern Fleet is unwilling to go against Furness. What's more, Kedrick has a better relationship with Furness. In the past, Kedrick was regarded as a middleman between the nobles and the big pirates. His existence allowed the Eastern Fleet to get a lot of help from pirates. Looking at the Volcano, which had been transformed into an armed escort ship, Kedrick felt very painful in his heart. He really didn't want to be an enemy of Mr. Furness. What should he do after the real fight? Should he really rush to the Volcano? Kedrick looked around and saw some officers staring at him. He understood what the other officers meant. It was well known that Furness and Kedrick had a very good relationship. If he hesitated after the war, it meant that he was not loyal to the royal family. If this news reached the capital, his future would be ruined. The royal family would even order Count Nahur to remove Kedrick from the Royal Navy. The wanted order was issued by the royal family, with the seal of His Majesty the King on it. This time, the arrest of Furness was led by Marquis Nicta himself. Kedrick didn't know what to do. He didn't get instructions from his father, and his father didn't tell him what to do when he met Mr. Furness in the future. Before leaving, he went to see Butler Wendler. Although Butler Wendler was demoted to a servant, he still respected him very much and treated Butler Wendler as before. Butler Wendler said that he didn't need to worry about this kind of thing, because he had no way to deal with it, and he just had to wait for the furnace to deal with it. Although he said so, Kedrick was still in a state of anxiety. The volcano did not stop, but directly passed the flagship of Count Nahar and came to the flagship of Marquis Nikta. Count Nahar and Kedrick breathed a sigh of relief, at least they didn't have to face the furnace right away. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 640. All the ships of the Royal Navy aimed their guns at the volcano, but the officers had not received the order to fire, and all the gunners were waiting. Until the volcano came in front of the Marquis' flagship, it was surrounded by the semi-arc of Royal Navy ships, targeted by more than 200 guns and other heavy weapons, and locked by more than a dozen high-level knights with javelins. Looking at the volcano, the officers of the Royal Navy's Eastern Fleet understood the officers' hesitation. It was not difficult to attack the volcano, but then, the captain of the volcano, Furnace, could be resurrected more than 20 times, and they could not imagine how to deal with this ability that exceeded conventional cognition. Moreover, the volcano was a pirate ship that the Eastern Fleet was very familiar with. This ship had helped the Eastern Fleet as a decisive force in several naval battles. The voice of the furnace rang out on the sea, either fight. If not, get out of the way. The officers of the Royal Navy felt that the furnace was too rampant, but after more than 10 seconds, they still did not wait for the officer's attack order. Marquis Nikita shouted, "Furnace! Hand over the werewolves that are wandering outside. Leave the goods of the Alchemy Council. I can let you go." Rudolph's sight fell on a werewolf next to Marquis Nikita, another level 7 werewolf. Although werewolves are not very strong, there are many of them. The huge number brings more opportunities to pass on genes, which is the survival strategy of many animals. I refuse. Then what? Hearing the answer from the furnace, Marquis Nikita couldn't help but tighten the hilt of the broadsword in his hand. As a level 6 knight, he was a little embarrassed. Furnace, you not only secretly hide werewolves, but also escort the cargo ship of the Alchemy Council. The arms you escorted to the Alchemy Council will eventually become bullets shot at my Royal Navy and Army soldiers. Today, on behalf of the royal family, I will officially execute you. The words of Marquis Nikita were amplified by the power of the apostles, and the high-pitched voice was extremely penetrating on the sea, so that soldiers in the distance could also be heard. The bullets shot at each soldier, such words can arouse the fighting spirit of each soldier, and they are fighting for themselves. In response, Rudolph took out a revolver. He swung the revolver to the left, and the cylinder popped out with a crisp metal mechanism sound. Marquis Nikita, as everyone knows, I used to fight side by side with the Royal Navy. If your royal family hadn't wanted me, how could I escort the Alchemy Council? Marquis Nikita was full of confidence. He was not afraid of the furnace. The furnace could be resurrected many times. He even thought it was a good thing for him. He could slowly approach his limit in the long battle and be promoted to a level 7 knight after breaking through the limit. When he became a level 7 knight, a small level 6 wizard would not be his opponent. However, when he saw the bullet taken out by the furnace, his breathing suddenly stagnated. It was a green bullet. Ordinary bullets are copper bullets, and copper shell bullets are the best bullets. Only in special circumstances can you see green bullets. The green bullet proves that it is a steel bullet. The most famous steel bullet is the level 8 alchemical bullet of House, the Speaker of the upper house of the Elba Alchemy Council. The news was much faster than the speed of the ship. When the cargo ship was sailing slowly, the news of the destruction of the ancient Sea Wizard Association had already reached Seagull Port and the base of the Royal Navy's Eastern Fleet. During the destruction of the ancient Sea Wizard Association, The combination of the furnace and the level 8 alchemical bullet reminded the apostles of their fear of the Southern Cross assassin. Not only did Marquis Nicta sweat coldly, but the werewolf as the messenger of Xuanhuan also felt that the sea breeze here was so damp and cold. Why do you still have precious level 8 alchemical bullets? Facing Nicta's question, Rudolph just smiled. He pressed the green bullet into the cylinder, then swung it to the right, and the cylinder returned to the position to be fired. Gently pulled down the hammer, and a crisp metallic sound rang out. This sound reached Marquis Nicta's ears, and all his plans were disrupted. If the fight really started, the furnace would smash his head in an instant, and he would have no reaction ability at all, let alone the opportunity to slowly approach the limit and then break through. The voice of the furnace sounded. For the friendship of fighting together in the past, I will give you a chance. As a wanted criminal of the royal family, I can still chat here this time, even if it is an unpleasant exchange. I now officially inform you that this is our last chance to communicate. If I see the Royal Navy ships approaching my volcano and giant next time, I will not hold back. After 30 seconds, if there are still Royal Navy officers or soldiers facing me head-on, this bullet will be fired. Rudolph picked up the gun, gestured to the Marquis's head, and then put it down casually. Mackenzie on the side slowly took out a pocket watch, pressed the timing button on the top, and started counting. The sound of the sea breeze and waves was loud, but the officers of the Royal Navy seemed to hear the death-threatening sound of the second hand. They came here because of Marquis Nicta. Marquis Nicta held the furnace, and the other ships went straight to the merchant ship. At that time, the battle would definitely win. But what if Marquis Nicta died? The level 8 alchemical bullet is the alchemical weapon that Speaker House of the Alchemical Parliament is most proud of. The level 8 alchemical power contained in it is not something a Marquis can resist, especially since the furnace can easily send this bullet into the head of Marquis Nikita. Cold sweat fell from Marquis Nikita's head. If the one facing the furnace was a level 7 knight, one of the three dukes, then they might have fought with thunder, but Nikita was only a level 6 knight, and the level 8 alchemical bullet could really kill him easily. A drop of cold sweat fell from Marquis Nikita's eyelashes and fell into his eyeballs that were about to pop out of his eye sockets. His fragile eyeballs were stimulated by the sweat drops containing salt, and he suddenly sobered up a little. He whispered, "Retreat." The voice of this order was really small. Fortunately, the flagship seemed to be frozen, and there was no sound at all. The staff officer clearly heard this mosquito-like order. A sharp whistle sounded on the flagship, 3 short and 1 long whistle sounds, which was the order for the Royal Navy to retreat. Not only that, all officers asked the soldiers on the deck to turn around immediately and never face the furnace. If they retreated, of course they had to follow the furnace's order and turn their backs to him, otherwise it would be bad if the furnace found an excuse to attack. The ship began to turn around and move away quickly. When retreating, other officers looked at Kedrick on the Earl's flagship. Although Kedrick didn't say a word, everyone understood that the reason why the furnace didn't kill Marquis Nikita immediately was because of his deep friendship with Kedrick. Marquis Nikita would not admit this. He didn't even think of explaining to the werewolf messenger. He walked towards the captain's room with a cold face. The volcano also headed towards the freight ship. Cooper whispered, "When did the Parliament give you the level 8 alchemical bullet? Are they so generous? What level 8 alchemical bullet? When did I say this bullet is a level 8 alchemical bullet? What? Fake. Otherwise, the level 8 alchemical bullet is a special bullet for a special purpose. It's like it was designed specifically to prevent me. I can't get such a bullet. The key is not whether I have it or not, but whether the other party believes that I have it." "Shit, you are really..." Cooper suddenly felt that Rudolph was a gambler, a cruel gambler. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 641. Volcano Shipping Company has achieved another success, forcing the royal knights to retreat. After the news was passed back to the court of Elba, the nobles did not laugh at Marquis Nicta. It is not easy to laugh, because if they were to go, they would not know how to deal with the furnace. The exaggerated number of resurrections of the furnace, the identity of the Southern Cross assassin, plus the level 8 alchemical bullets of the Alchemical Council, cannot be killed. As long as a mistake is caught, it will be killed instantly by the level 8 alchemical bullets. Only the werewolf messenger kept shouting on different occasions, strongly demanding that the Elba royal family arrest the wizard who killed the werewolf messenger and recover the werewolves who were stranded outside. In response, the nobles reacted very calmly. Cooperation with werewolves is already very controversial, and werewolves have a very bad reputation. The rudeness of this werewolf messenger disgusted the court very much. It is not as good as the previous werewolf in a ridiculous yellow suit. This werewolf is naked every day and wears a vacuum cowhide skirt. It is unbearable to look at it when sitting down. After forcing the royal knights to retreat, the tense atmosphere in the smuggling fleet was swept away. Although they only had one armed escort ship, it was extremely powerful, and the captains of the cargo ships had more confidence in this smuggling. The volcano also deliberately passed by Redbeard Port, which was deserted and had no forces to take over. It may be because the owners of Redbeard Island, the Furnace, and the Green Skull, were still alive, and no pirate dared to take over. Leaving Redbeard Island and continuing to sail east for 4 or 5 days, you will leave the east-west Sarago Sea and enter the wider Winter Ocean. The Winter Ocean has no end, and I don't know what is on the other side of the ocean. The alchemists here are not good, and they all have steam turbines. The captains who sail around the world still have no return. There has never been a legend of discovering a new world, and I don't know what dangers are in the depths of the Winter Ocean. The North Continent and the South Continent seem to be all of this planet, making people feel lonely. Going north in the Winter Ocean, you can enter the waters of the Cantal United States. A week later, the fleet arrived at the first major port of the Cantal United States, which was also the destination of this trip. When the merchants on the shore saw the Oyster Bay flag belonging to the Elba Alchemy Council on the fleet, they were more excited than the Elba people on the ship. It had been a long time since they had seen the cargo ships of the Elba Alchemy Council. This huge fleet actually crossed the Sarago Sea. This was not an ordinary fleet, but a ship of golden shields. After the long voyage, Rudolph and his men could finally take a break. They came to the tavern and prepared to relax. Before entering the tavern, Rudolph saw the drinkers hurriedly running out of the tavern, as if something terrible had happened in the tavern. Rudolph found a tavern and walked in. The tavern was empty, and several wine waiters were standing around the bar at a loss. 4 glasses of beer. 1 glass of red wine. Rudolph, Yvonne, Cooper, Drake, and Mackenzie, they found a table and sat down. Not long after, 2 people appeared on the table behind Rudolph, and Rudolph had to turn around and sit on the table behind him. Furnace, I'm surprised to see you here. I'm Jonathan, the director of the Bluestone Province Court of Justice. Hello, Director Jonathan. The Court of the Senate of the United States of Canada is looking for you, did you know? I don't know, but I can guess. You killed the speaker and hospital director of Zihai City, and destroyed an important fertilizer factory. Rudolph didn't waste any more words, he took out the letter of introduction. This is the letter of introduction from the Elba Alchemy Council, written by the Commander-in-Chief of the Constitutional Army. I don't want to argue with you about who was right or wrong about what happened on the Purple Beach at that time. If you agree with this letter, I will continue to complete my trade. If you don't agree, then I will leave. As for whether to fight with you and then leave or leave directly, it's all fine. Rudolph was also very irritable, and he didn't know why. There were enemies everywhere, and no force could get along well with Rudolph. The bad nature of wizards is the main reason. There is no way to break up with the Elba nobles for Yvonne. In order to fight against the knights, The Elba Alchemy Council and the Cantal Alchemy Council have already formed an alliance. The Elba Alchemy Council is fighting for the common interests of alchemists. Director Jonathan carefully read the letter of introduction from the Commander-in-Chief of the Elba Constitutional Army. In the letter of introduction, it said that most of the support from the Cantal United States was transported by land through the railway of the Carolingian Alchemy Council. The cost of the land transport team was too high, 6 times higher than the cost of sea transportation. All support is paid. The Elba Alchemy Council can no longer afford the discounted materials, so they want to continue to transport them by sea. The wizard furnace is crucial in sea transportation. It has the ability to cross the Sarago Sea. They hope that the Cantal Alchemy Council will not pursue the crimes committed by the furnace in the Cantal United States for the sake of jointly fighting against the Knights. When the war is over, the Constitutional Army will assist the Cantal United States Trial Department to arrest the furnace. Seeing the seals of the Elba Constitutional Army and the House of Lords in the letter of introduction, Jonathan knew why the furnace was so confident. The materials loaded from the United States of Cantal had to travel a long railway, consume countless coals, and cross the entire Carolingian kingdom before they could enter the Elba Alchemy Council. This efficiency was very low and far less costly than sea transportation. I understand. I will bring this letter of introduction to the Parliament. I hope you will not act rashly before the Parliament responds, let alone commit unforgivable crimes again. After hearing what Jonathan, the President of the Court of Justice, said, Rudolph smiled and said nothing. He also did not agree, because he would not cause trouble, but trouble would find him, and there was nothing he could do. After sending the people from the Court of Justice away, Rudolph asked Mackenzie to contact the shipyard here to see what the 2 ships of the Wizards Association were like and whether they could be taken away this time. A day later, Mackenzie came back from the shipyard. He said that the situation was good. The military shipyard was working overtime, but the civilian shipyard was shrinking. The workers had no orders to do, and many teams were working on the ships of the Wizards Association. This allowed the 2 ships of the Wizards Association to be completed ahead of schedule. As long as the balance was paid, they could take away 2 sea ships now. When Rudolph arrived at the port again, he saw his 2 new ships. The Giant is now a cargo ship, and the 2 ships of the Wizards Association, Pisces 1 and Pisces 2, have also been transformed into cargo ships. The smuggler snugs 8 cargo ships, now there are 11 cargo ships. What surprised him was that the alchemists and merchants of Cantal actually managed to get 10 cargo ships. In addition to these cargo ships, there were 2 supply ships full of coal. In other words, Rudolph, with 1 ship, the Volcano, had to escort 23 ships. This was too much trust in Rudolph. Rudolph quickly found Mackenzie and said to him, Quick! Quick! Tell those Cantal merchants that they need to pay more. Mackenzie nodded in agreement. He also felt that the fleet of 23 ships was too large. Captain, I heard a piece of news. Cantal's goods used to be sold to the west through the railway of the Carolingian kingdom, but the contradictions between alchemists and nobles in the Carolingian kingdom were sharp, and there was a possibility of a civil war. At that time, the railway would not be smooth, so the merchants here stuffed so many cargo ships here at once to avoid risks. This was bad news. Rudolph did not have much affection for his hometown, the Carolingian kingdom, but he did not want it to fall into civil strife. Oh, I get it. It's all because of the power of destruction. The Carolingian alchemists and noble knights are also about to enter the battlefield. But this will not affect our raising the price. Tell those merchants that we can't protect their ships without double the freight.